Hello lovelies, today we're trying out the very trendy no makeup look. I know this seems so conceited because we want to look like we're wearing no makeup, but trust me, the no makeup look has a full face of makeup and you're going to find out how I do mine. So let's get started. So guys, I am starting with prepping my skin, but remember to moisturize and use your SPF before the step, which I had already done. The primer I'm using is the Milk Hydro Grip Primer. I love this one because it also has some skincare benefits. And now I'm moving on to using a mixing palette. You don't have to, you can mix it in your hand as well. I like to mix my skin tint and my concealer so it gives a more lighter but still even coverage. And it thins out the concealer a little bit so it doesn't look like too much makeup. So the tinted moisturizer that I'm using is from Rare Beauty. It's called the Positive Light Tinted Moisturizer. This also has SPF 20. And my most coveted concealer that I talk about all the time, it is the Tarte Shape Tape Contour Concealer, and I'm using it in the shade Medium Honey. So I'm just putting them on a mixing palette and mixing them through with a beauty blender. The makeup palette, the mixing palette can be used like a mirror, but no, it's not as effective, and I realize that. But so what I'm doing is just trying to conceal only on the spots that need coverage, which is under my eyes. I have a little bit of redness on my chin because I have mild rosacea, so that's where I'm covering. The sides of my nose, where I also have a little bit of redness. And also I'm going to take it up to a little bit under my brow bone because that's where I have a little bit of veins that are peeking out. I have thinner skin there. But the key is to only apply as much as you feel like when you look in a mirror that you can't see those imperfections anymore. And to be honest, if you like those imperfections, like for example on my cheeks when I have a little bit of mild rosacea, I let them peek through, then go ahead. But yeah, the key is to use it only on spots where you feel like you need maximum coverage. You can leave some of those imperfections to shine through. And I did use a little bit just in between my brows because that's where I get a little bit red as well. But yeah, those are the few spots that I like to conceal and make them look sort of even with the rest of my skin tone. And that's it. Of course, now I have this little pimple that's peeking through, or like a pimple mark. So I'm just using a corrector, and the corrector that I use is the Charlotte Tilbury corrector in the shade Medium 2. And I'm just going over a few layers. We're trying to cover that very nasty acne scar. The key is also use a little bit. If it peeks through a little bit orange, then don't worry. You can always go on top with that remaining of your mixture of the skin tint and concealer to cover it a little bit more. And also remember, the key is to conceal around the mark or around the pimple if you have any. That makes it look more natural as opposed to like you've had a whole lot of makeup to cover it up. And now I'm moving on to something that's not very usually done. So I'm using my lip liner, which I'm going to use for my lips as well. It's this little dusty rose pink. It's actually from Huda Beauty. It's called the Lip Contour 2.0 in rusty pink. And I'm just sort of creating a shadow on the same line as my lower waterline, if that's what we're calling it, just to make it look not perfectly bright, you know, to give you that more natural look. So just in the corners, the outer corners, I'm adding a little line and then smudging it through with my finger. Very little is the key. Almost matches sort of your waterline color. That's the color that you want to pick. And now that I've created a shadow for my lower lid or lower waterline, I feel like I need to even it out by creating a little bit of a shadow on the upper lid. So I'm just using this brown pencil. It's an eye pencil, again from Charlotte Tilbury. This one is, I don't know, the one that has beige on one side and brown on the other. I think it's called the Super Nudes Liner Duo. They have multiple shades. So I'm just using, again, the same technique. A little bit on the outer corners and then smudging it through. Remember, you don't want it to look like eyeliner. It's just to create that little depth or shadow. And that's the most part for the eyes. If you do need a help of a brush, which I felt like I needed, then go ahead and pick it up because my fingers didn't do enough for the upper lid. So just blending is key with this look. I'm going in with this lip and cheek tint from Milk Makeup. This is in the shade Work, and what I really like to do with this one is warm it up on the front of my hand before I use it so that I have very little peeking through on my cheeks when I use it. It's almost like a little flush. So I warm it up in the back of my hand and then go in with a brush and just dab a little bit. The idea is don't sweep too much because you don't want to move your skin that you've used underneath. Just go dab it a little bit on both sides. What I also like to do with this is use a little bit of the remains that's on the brush on my eyelid just to create that even like peeking through or flush of color that's on my skin so it looks evened out. Yeah, and like I said, the key is blend. Just go dabbing it in. You don't need a lot. Warm it up at the back of your hands and then take only a little bit of it so that it looks mostly natural. Like I said, I do have mild rosacea, so I've become very comfortable with that little pinkyish cheek, so I felt like I wanted it to look exactly like that and less like makeup. And now it's time for the brows. So the key to the no makeup look is not heavily or fully filling in your brows. I love to use this brow mascara that I have from Nykaa. It's called Oh My Brow, and it has the perfect fluffy brush that sort of, when you use it, I don't know, it creates this weird shape, but it also looks like my eyebrows are in place. So it's not a gel, it's not like stiff and hard, but it creates that put together sort of like eyebrow without feeling like you've used makeup. So the key is just use like a brow mascara and do not fill in your brows. And now it's time for contour. So because we're not using any powdery stuff and we want to go with that dewy natural look, I'm using a cream contour. I don't know, it's like a bronzer contour mix, but this is from Tipsy Beauty. It's an Indian brand. It's called the Silk Cushion Contour in the shade Maple Syrup. It's almost like the Charlotte Tilbury one, so if that's something that you find your hands easier on, go ahead. I use a really thin brush and I like to contour just at the tip of my nose and on the sides. And I also like to add a little bit above my upper lip and below my lower lip to give you that feeling of a more plumper lip without trying too hard with makeup. So those are the spots that I like to use a contour. And I love this shade because it's not heavily cool toned. It's a mix of a warm contour, if that makes sense. And I'm using my fingers to blend because I find that easier when I have to go through like smaller spots. No matter how many times I say it, I don't think it's enough. I'm going back in with the initial lip liner that I talked about, the Rusty Pink Huda Beauty, and slightly lining my lips. And then I'm going to line it with the same liner that I use under my eyes so that it creates that even finish, and then smudge it out to diffuse it with my fingers so it doesn't look like a stark line. And now it's time to add some color to the lips. So what I'm using is the Rare Beauty Tinted Lip Oil in the shade Serenity. I really like this on my lips, so I go all over it. I go all over my lip with the tinted lip oil. And what I love about is that it's so natural. You can actually leave it on glossy if you want to look like you've used a lip oil or a lip gloss, but otherwise you put it on, and I'm going to leave it on for a couple of minutes to create that tint. That's most of what I do for my lips. And now it's time for some mascara. So what I like to do with the mascara is this one that I'm using is the Milk Mascara. It's the Kush Mascara from Milk Makeup. And I really like this one because it gives you a very natural, fluttery look. And what I like to do right after is use this like eyelash separator brush that I have, but I think you could also use like a clean spoolie just to take off that excess so that it looks so natural, like you've used mascara, but it doesn't look like heavily coated. Also, one more tip is that usually when I'm doing a no makeup look, I don't use mascara on my lower lash line. It's just, I feel like it looks more natural that way. So just the upper lash. Me clearly struggling with the eyelash separator, making sure I don't poke it in my eyes. Like I said, you could use a spoolie instead if that's what you're more comfortable with or feels safer to use. And now I'm going ahead and dabbing off a little bit of that lip oil so that it looks more, like I said, pinched, flushed sort of look, because I've left it enough for it to create that little tint and color to come through. Like I said, you could always leave it on just like that. You can have glossy lips even for the no makeup look. And lastly, I like to use a highlighter, but I like to use a liquid highlighter. This one is again from an Indian brand called K Beauty. This one is in the shade Champagne, but any liquid highlighter that doesn't have too much of shimmer particles, that has more like a sheen, like a glazed sort of finish. So I just put a little pump on the back of my hand and use my fingers pimples to just sort of create that like sheen, like I said. So it doesn't look like I've used highlighter. It feels like it's a glow from within. Like I said, the key is try and use a highlighter that doesn't have too many shimmer particles and it's more like a liquid so that it blends really evenly. I'm going ahead with applying a little bit just on my Cupid's bow as well to create a little bit of a plumpy look. And to finish everything off, I'm going in with a makeup setting spray. Now, you potentially want to do this before you do your mascara, but you could also, if you have really oily skin, you could choose to use a setting powder, but only on those spots that you get oily, because if you use a powder all over, it's not going to look as natural. And basically, that is the finished look. So there you have it, guys. This was a simple yet effective no makeup look, and as you saw, it involved a full routine. So feel free to adapt it to your style. Obviously, looking great, feeling natural, all comes from within. So adapt it to your style and let me know what is your favorite makeup look that makes you look natural or makes you feel most in confidence. And don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to watch this channel for more beauty tips.